So I can see some faces I know, and because the screen is quite small, I can't see everybody, but I think I know quite a lot of people here. But any of you that I don't, it's also nice to see you. And also, if you're just coming in late and you're wondering why I'm sitting here, not Andy, he will teach in a short while, but I'm leading the first meditation to prepare our minds to listen and reflect and study the Dharma and think how it applies to our own existence, our everyday life, and also our progress as we develop. So I'm going to suggest that you get comfortable for a meditation. Find your posture, particularly a straight back. And as you do this, use the adjusting of the body to begin to adjust your mind, to bring your consciousness turning inwards, letting go of the things you've been thinking about earlier, the jobs you've got to do later. Just ease into being in the present. So body and mind going together. So be aware of your breath. Allow it to focus your mind, calm your mind. Each breath you take settles your mind a little bit more. And see if we can start by recalling a time when some spontaneous compassion arose for you. Sometimes I think it's hard to just recall these things as on will, but just cast your mind. Maybe it's not even your best example, but try and think of when compassion arose for you. Really, there's so many opportunities for this at the moment. We just have to turn the news on. So there's a couple of things about this in that actually it's good to remember that we have some compassion. It's not something we're starting from naught. We already have some, but it can be developed. And then just thinking a little bit about the example that came to mind. Think a little bit more about examining that compassion and thinking, was it based on the fact that you were close to that person? You knew them, they were important to you. So there was perhaps an element of self-interest in there. Or at least easier to feel compassion because you know them. but maybe you didn't know them. So it's just to understand a little bit more about compassion. Just think in this particular example. And then think about whether or not there was an element of pity in your compassion. A kind of subtle looking down on. And certainly perhaps a feeling of self-interest in the sense of, thank goodness it's not me that that's happening to. So just check. I'm not saying this would be your main feeling, but just check. Does it come in? And then check again. Is it based on reason? The Dalai Lama urges us to develop compassion that's based on reason, because he said this is more stable. And the reason, of course, is that just like us, other beings want happiness and want to avoid suffering. And we know from our own experience, if we look inside, that we experience suffering. Even if we have a privileged life, there are many dissatisfactions, things that go wrong, things we didn't want to happen, things we wanted to happen that didn't. Things that were good at first that deteriorated. So we have our own experience of suffering. But we're not alone. Other living beings all have suffering until all of us are enlightened. So thinking about developing compassion that's based on reason. And if we take this example from the Dalai Lama about all of us wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, this helps us universalize our compassion. It's more stable because if it was somebody close to us and we feel compassionate one minute, but the next minute they do something to harm us and we lose our compassion, that's not very stable. And when we use reason, there's absolutely no reason to discriminate between one person and another in terms of our compassion for all. So try and have a sense of this rational compassion at your heart that's not selective. It doesn't choose some who are more deserving than others. Of course, it recognizes that some sufferings are worse than others at that particular moment. But whilst we're all caught up in samsara, those sufferings are going to keep coming because the causes are there. The cause of our own innate self-grasping. Thinking my and mine, and them over there. So just have a sense of it at your heart center, in the center of your chest. Not your physical heart, but your heart center. And whilst at the beginning we still have this self-grasping, we can still start to expand our compassion outwards. For those we care about, those we don't know, those who may be troublesome, for animals and other beings. Just feel it like an expansion in your heart center. Holding that deep wish for them to be free of suffering and all its causes. So allow this experience of expansion and non-discrimination to reach out to all beings. And then gently relax your concentration.